campaign for president in 1984.
We do not just need a new president, we need a new direction. Our leaders are talking too little to too many leaders in this world.
Jackson ended up placing a stronger than expected third in the Democratic primary. In 1988, his second campaign focused on increasing government spending and U.S. support for the Third World. But he came up short once again.
We must never surrender. America will get better and better.
After campaign politics, Jackson was a talk show host and was an early supporter, but occasional critic, of Barack Obama's presidential bid, famously photographed in Chicago's Grant Park on election night, 2008. Initially diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, Jackson revealed in 2025 he'd been battling progressive supranuclear palsy, a long-term degenerative brain condition. But his public appearances continued, more as a supporter of a new generation of activists
In the filibuster.
fighting for voting rights, fair housing, and police reform. Echoing the same message he spent years preaching.
And nobody can stop us now. Moving on up. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
In his statement this morning, Jackson's family wrote, quote, "Our father was a servant leader, not only to our family, but to the oppressed, the voiceless, and the overlooked around the world. His unwavering belief in justice, equality, and love uplifted millions, and we ask you to honor his memory by continuing the fight for the values he lived by." The family says all public events celebrating Jackson's life will be held in his home city of Chicago. Details, Vlad, have not yet been released.
You know, Ed, I recall as a young teenager watching Reverend Jackson speaking at the 1984 and 1988 Democratic National Conventions. And what I was struck by then, as I am now, is how he stressed that offering hope to what he called those who had been disenfranchised. He wanted what he called voter inclusion, millions of people who were poor, who were black and brown, who were disenfranchised, who were the working class, to be included in the political process. He didn't believe that democracy could survive if those millions of people were not part of that process.
The line for that 1984 speech that sticks out: "My constituency is the desperate, the damned, the disinherited, the disrespected, and the despised. They are restless and seek relief. They voted in record numbers." It was a barrier-breaking campaign that opened up so many opportunities for so many others, most obviously President Obama, but also, frankly, the far-left movement. Bernie Sanders wouldn't have been able to run the way he did for president back in the day were it not for some of the things Jesse Jackson had brought up. There'll be a lot of examination of his life and legacy in the coming days.
Yeah.
We begin this morning with a Fox News alert. Civil rights activist Reverend Jesse Jackson has died at the age of 84. His family announcing the news overnight. More on his life and legacy right now.
Put your hands together for our leader, the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Civil rights leader, politician, and community activist Jesse Louis Jackson was born October 8, 1941 in Greenville, South Carolina. He met Jacqueline Lavinia Brown. They got married in 1962 and together had 5 children. At that time, in the early 60s, the country was in the throes of the civil rights movement.
Will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood? I have a dream.
Jackson says he was so inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King, he went to work for him and was with King when he was assassinated in 1968.
Actually succeeded Dr. King after King's assassination in 1968 as the premier leader of the civil rights movement.
I never stopped serving.
In 1971, Jackson founded a group called People United to Save Humanity, or Operation Push. Jackson ran for the presidency in 1983, but lost the Democratic nomination to Walter Mondale. In a second try in '88, Jackson landed second place in the Democratic primaries, falling short to then Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis.
He played a significant role in the transition, to some extent, of the civil rights movement from protest to politics.
Around this time, the civil rights leader formed a group he named the Rainbow Coalition because it was made up of people from all races and ethnic backgrounds.
That is the unfinished business that I'm about, fighting for equal opportunity for all Americans and peace in the world.
But Jackson's reputation took a major hit in early 2001. A tabloid broke the news that the Reverend fathered a child out of wedlock with one of his aides, Karen Stanford. Some supporters were outraged, but several civil rights leaders spoke out in support of Jackson.
And Reverend Jackson will get up, brush himself off, and keep on marching. And we'll be marching right there with him. Congratulations.
Over the years, Jackson was recognized over and over again for his work on equal rights and efforts to help the less fortunate. He collected over 35 honorary degrees.
Reverend Jesse Jackson is just so special, not just to us, not just to our country, but to our world.
Supporters say in the last several decades, Jesse Jackson did more than anyone to move this country's civil rights agenda forward.
We now have the first African-American president. It would not have been possible if it were not for Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson.
I've sought to be a long distance runner. I would like to be measured by my box score, not by the home run or the strikeout, but being a long distance servant.
And Jackson's followers promised the movement will continue.
We are not afraid.
Mike Tobin, Fox News.
And Carly, I think for a lot of the younger generations, the impact and the ubiquitousness of the Reverend Jesse Jackson, I don't think is necessarily felt. But for somebody like me who grew up in the 80s, Jesse Jackson was everywhere. Obviously ran for president twice in the 80s. So anytime you run for the highest office in the land, you are going to get a lot of notoriety. But I would argue that in terms of when I think of the 80s, two people that stand out as being ever present in the 80s, Jesse Jackson and Donald Trump. And I don't think the connection between the two of them can be overstated. I am very curious to see what Donald Trump has to say online in an interview on tape when he learns of this news and actually ends up talking about it. But here's an individual who had a controversial but definitely extremely varied career. Here's somebody who actually helped win the release of several detained and captured Americans around the world. In 1999, negotiated the release of 3 U.S. soldiers held in what was then Yugoslavia. But then, as you heard in Mike Tobin's report, there were the accusations of having a child out of wedlock. Controversial, noteworthy. And I understand also there's definite friction between
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Tonight, we pause and give praise and honor to God for being good enough to allow us to be at this place at this time. When I look out at this convention, I see the face of America, red, yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight, the real Rainbow Coalition. All of us who are here think that we are seated, but we're really standing on someone's shoulders. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Rosa Parks. The mother of the Civil Rights Movement. I want to express my deep love and appreciation for the support my family has given me over these past months. They have endured pain, anxiety, threat, and fear, but they have been strengthened and made secure by our faith in God, in America, and in you. Your love has protected us and made us strong. To my wife, Jackie, the foundation of our family, to our 5 children whom you met tonight, to my mother, Mrs. Helen Jackson, who is present tonight, and to our grandmother, Mrs. Matilda Burns, to my brother Chuck and his family, to my mother-in-law, Mrs. Gertrude Brown, who just last month at age 61 graduated from Hampton Institute, a marvelous achievement. I offer my appreciation to Mayor Andrew Young, who has provided such gracious hospitality to all of us this week, and a special salute to President Jimmy Carter. President Carter, President Carter restored honor to the White House after Watergate. He gave many of us a special opportunity to grow. For his kind words, for his unwavering commitment to peace in the world, and for the voters that came from his family, every member of his family, led by Billy and Amy, I offer my special thanks to the Carter family. My right and my privilege to stand here before you has been won in my lifetime by the blood and the sweat of the innocent. 24 years ago, the late Fannie Lou Hamer and Aaron Henry, who sits here tonight from Mississippi, were locked out onto the streets in Atlantic City, the head of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. But tonight, a black and white delegation from Mississippi is headed by Ed Cole, a black man from Mississippi, 24 years later. Many were lost in the struggle for the right to vote. Jimmy Lee Jackson, a young student, gave his life. Vala Louise, a white mother from Detroit,
called nigger lover, and brains blown out at point blank range. Surrounded Goodman and Cheney, 2 Jews and a black, found in a common grave, bodies riddled with bullets in Mississippi. The 4 darling little girls in a church in Birmingham, Alabama. They died that we might have a right to live. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. lies only a few miles from us tonight. Tonight he must feel good as he looks down upon us. We sit here together, a rainbow coalition, the sons and daughters of slave masters and the sons and daughters of slaves sitting together around the common table to decide the direction of our party and our country. His heart would be full tonight as a testament to the struggles of those who have gone before, as a legacy for those who will come after, as a tribute to the endurance, the patience, the courage of our forefathers and mothers, as an assurance that their prayers are being answered, that their work has not been in vain, and the hope is eternal. Tomorrow night, my name will go in nomination for the presidency of the United States of America. We meet tonight at the crossroads, a point of decision. Shall we expand, be inclusive, find unity and power, or suffer division and impotence? We come to Atlanta, the cradle of the old South, the crucible of the new South. Tonight there is a sense of celebration because we are moved, fundamentally moved from racial battlegrounds by law to economic common ground. The moral challenge to move to higher ground, common ground. Think of Jerusalem, the intersection where many trails met, a small village that became the birthplace for 3 great religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Why was this village so blessed? Because it provided a crossroads where different people met, different cultures, different civilizations could meet and find common ground. When people come together, flowers always flourish. The air is rich with the aroma of a new spring. Take New York, the dynamic metropolis. What makes New York so special is the invitation at the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses who yearn to breathe free, not restricted to English only. Many people, many cultures, many languages, with one thing in common: they yearn to breathe free, common ground. Tonight in Atlanta, for the first time in this century, we convene in the South, a state where governors once stood in schoolhouse doors, where Julian Bond was denied his seat in the state legislature because of his conscientious objection to the Vietnam War, a city that through its 5 black universities has graduated more black students than any city in the world. Atlanta, now a modern intersection of the New South. Common ground. That's the challenge of our party tonight. Left wing, right wing. Progress will not come through boundless liberalism, nor static conservatism, but at the critical mass of mutual survival, not at boundless liberalism, nor static conservatism, but at the critical mass of mutual survival. It takes 2 wings to fly. Whether you're a hawk or a dove, you're just a bird living in the same environment, in the same world. The Bible teaches that when lions and lambs lie down together, none will be afraid, and there will be peace in the valley. It sounds impossible. Lions eat lambs. Lambs sensibly flee from lions. Yet even lions and lambs find common ground. Why? Because neither lion nor lambs want the forest to catch on fire. Neither lions nor lambs want acid rain to fall. Neither lions nor lambs can survive nuclear war. If lions and lambs can find common ground, surely we can as well as civilized people. The only time that we win is when we come together. In 1960, John Kennedy, the late John Kennedy, beat Richard Nixon by only 112,000 votes. Less than one vote per precinct. We won by the margin of our hope. He brought us together. He reached out. He had the courage to defy his advisors and inquire about Dr. King's jailing in Albany, Georgia. We won by the margin of our hope, inspired by courageous leadership. In 1964, Lyndon Johnson brought both wings together, the thesis, the antithesis, and the creative synthesis, and together we won. In 1976, Jimmy Carter unified us again, and we won. When we do not come together, we never win. In 1968, division and despair in July led to our defeat in November. In 1980, rancor in the spring and the summer led to Reagan in the fall. When we divide, we cannot win. We must find common ground as a basis for survival and development and change and growth. Today, when we debated, differed, deliberated, agreed to agree, agreed to disagree, when we had the good judgment to argue a case and then not self-destruct, George Bush was just a little further away from the White House and a little closer to private life. Tonight, I salute Governor Michael Dukakis. He has run a well-managed and a dignified campaign. No matter how tired or how tried, he always resisted the temptation to stoop to demagoguery. I've watched a good mind fast at work with steel nerves, guiding his campaign out of the crowded field without appeal to the worst in us. I've watched his perspective grow as his environment has expanded. I've seen his toughness and tenacity close up, know his commitment to public service. Mike Dukakis' parents were a doctor and a teacher. My parents, a maid, a beautician, and a janitor. There's a great gap between Brookline, Massachusetts, and Haney Street, the Fieldcrest Village housing projects in Greenville, South Carolina. He studied law. I studied theology. There are differences of religion, region, and race, differences in experiences and perspectives. But the genius of America is that out of the many, we become one. Providence has enabled our paths to intersect. His foreparents came to America on immigrant ships. My foreparents came to America on slave ships. But whatever the original ships, we're in the same boat tonight. our ships could pass in the night if we had a false sense of independence, or they could collide and crash. We would lose our passengers. But we can seek a higher reality and a greater good. Apart, we can drift on the broken pieces of Reaganomics, satisfy our baser instincts, and exploit the fears of our people. At our highest, we can call upon noble instincts and navigate this vessel to safety. The greater good is the common good. As Jesus said, not my will, but thine be done. It was his way of saying there's a higher good beyond personal comfort or position. The good of our nation is at stake. Its commitment to working men and women, to the poor and the vulnerable, to the many in the world, with so many guided missiles and so much misguided leadership, the stakes are exceedingly high. Our choice, full participation in a democratic government, or more abandonment and neglect. And so this night, we choose not a false sense of independence, not our capacity to survive and endure. Tonight we choose interdependency and our capacity to act and unite for the greater good. Common good is found in commitment to new priorities, to expansion and inclusion, a commitment to expanded participation in the Democratic Party at every level, a commitment to a shared national campaign strategy and involvement at every level, a commitment to new priorities that ensure that hope will be kept alive, a common ground commitment to a legislative agenda for empowerment, for the John Conyers bill, universal, on-site, same-day registration everywhere. A commitment to DC statehood and empowerment. DC deserves statehood. A commitment to economic set-asides. A commitment to the Dellums bill for comprehensive sanctions against South Africa. A shared commitment to a common direction. Common ground. Easier said than done. Where do you find common ground? At the point of challenge. This campaign has shown that politics need not be marketed by politicians, packaged by posters and pundits. Politics can be a moral arena where people come together to find common ground. We find common ground at the plant gate that closes on workers without notice. We find common ground at the farm auction where a good farmer loses his or her land to bad loans or diminishing markets. Common ground at the schoolyard where teachers cannot get adequate pay and students cannot get a scholarship and can't make a loan. Common ground at the hospital admitting room where somebody tonight is dying because they cannot afford to go upstairs to a bed that's empty, waiting for someone with insurance to get sick. We are a better nation than that. We must do better. Common ground. What is leadership if not present help in a time of crisis? And so I met you at the point of challenge in Maine, where paper workers were striking for fair wages. In Greenfield, Iowa, where family farmers struggle for a fair price. In Cleveland, Ohio, where working women seek comparable worth. In McFarland, California, where the children of Hispanic farm workers may be dying from poison land, dying in clusters with cancer. In the AIDS hospice in Houston, Texas, where the sick support one another too often rejected by their own parents and friends. Common ground. America is not a blanket woven from one thread, one color, one cloth. When I was a child growing up in Greenville, South Carolina, and grandmama could not afford a blanket, she didn't complain and we did not freeze. Instead, she took pieces of old cloth, patches, wool, silk, gabardine, croaker sack, on the patches, barely good enough to wipe off your shoes with. But they didn't stay that way very long. With sturdy hands and a strong cord, she sewed them together into a quilt, a thing of beauty and power and culture. Now, Democrats, we must build such a quilt. Farmers, you seek fair prices.
Elections in Namibia, mass rallies in South Africa, elections across this country, voices, paper workers in Maine, women fighting for the rights of self-determination, the children fighting for children's rights, the basic rights to be heard. And so in this program, you're going to see farmers and workers and women and children as we share this global village with you and share with you Voices of America. This week, we had the good experience of being with a friend of ours whose voice we hear all of the time, but not this side of his voice. No one is successful because they're lucky, but because they really do plan it. We hear Bill Cosby. To talk with Bill about growing up in a housing project in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the gap between growing up in that housing project and whoever he is today, and it is a gap. Let's hear the voice, the other voice, if you will, of Bill Cosby.
What happened was I really woke up in the service because I was still playing when I went in to join the Navy and see the world and have a good time. See, I left the academic world and got into a world where discipline, you have to be, you better. And the people telling me these things, I felt were not as bright as I. And I felt that I had missed the point. But I got it right away when I got into the service. And so for 4 years, I went into physical therapy school. I worked with patients. And my whole drive was to get out of the service and get an education because I knew that once I got out of the service, if I didn't have a college education, I would be at Horn and Hardart busting tables. Nothing wrong with it, but I would be doing jobs to get a salary, to pay my rent, to buy a car, and none of these things really happened to be what I wanted to.
But you're not successful, therefore, because you're lucky or soulful.
No. This is all planned.
There's a sense when you watch the television, you see the successful Bill Cosby, family man, father of the country, TV personality, and somewhere between luck and soul, here comes Bill Cosby.
Right.
And your point is there's a work factor in that situation, a work ethic.
Well, certainly it is. But you know, in show business, unless you're on a certain level that the media considers the intellectual level, they would never write about it. They're not interested in it. I don't know how many times I've brought writers for magazines into the studio, and I've said to them, now this is what we're doing, and this is what we're consciously working on. And they said, well, was your father an alcoholic? I said, no, that's not important. This is how we get this script together, and this is how we're consciously making this approach in terms of a person's behavior.
Do they ever write about your academic pursuits as a fact in your development?
No, that's not interesting to them. And it isn't just racial. It has to do with what the media dislikes and likes about entertainers. They'd rather talk about how many cars a person owns as opposed to how you got to a successful television series. What is it that you did? They would rather write about it as if you had manipulated all of the public.
So they never see you as a cognitive thinking, planning, intellectual, disciplined person.
Absolutely not. They would rather have the public believe that I came from wherever I came from working, and this was luck. Well, it isn't luck.
Or soul.
No, and it isn't soul either. And it isn't I hope either. It's I know.
At what point during that period did you meet Camille?
Oh, I met Camille, I guess had to be about 9 months after working in the clubs, because I was making big bucks then. I was making about $300 a week.
So she married you for your money?
She knew it, and I told her that, and I want my money back.
You want your $300 back?
Right.
That's why she's chairman of the board.
Please.
Chairman of the board.
Yeah.
Let me ask a question. As your success exploded, the role of Camille in that process meant what to your ability to achieve the status that you now have achieved?
First of all, I think that your mate on the other side has to take that initiative, because if your mate doesn't have that strength, and I think it comes from protecting me. In other words, Camille would look and see people that she felt were not team players, and she would come to me or begin to get rid of those people herself.
Given the impact that this, what I call these gap experiences have had on you, I mean, the mother, father, Russell factor, and the Navy, and the Temple, and the Camille factor, in your living out this life on television, do these same values permeate the Huxtables, therefore?
Oh, yes. And they all have to do with education. They have to do with, even and in spite of your own feelings, to try to get a value across of appreciating other people.
Are you kind of reliving the best of your past through the Huxtables?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that part of the neighborhood that I loved. And life can be like that. It doesn't have to be where everything is painful. Once again, I have to go back to the media and what it puts out every day and reinforces that it's painful. Things must be painful. Well, I know pain. And when I was a kid, to have just the heel of the loaf of the bread, and there were 3 of us, and
Call
we
the hen.
Right. And use sugar and put mayonnaise on it so that, and you say, boy.
Jam
Now,
sandwich, 2 pieces of bread
and
jam so close together. You get a jam sandwich. And now we will take a break to sell some Jell-O pudding.
We hope.
Yeah. Well, given this basic instability now of the African-American family, the show is often attacked as being unrepresentative or unrealistic. How does that sit with you?
Sits just fine with me, because people who say that obviously are not paying attention to what's going on. To be fair is to just say nothing to them.
Then what is the motivation of those who challenge it as unrealistic?
Blatant racism problems. And I mean that. And I don't use that word that often. But the New York Times has a problem with it. They found some fellow from someplace, and the fellow wrote in his Sunday article that our show was subliminally telling people it was their fault that they were not doing well in life. But there's nothing negative in my mind about that. If you haven't taken advantage of your high school and the opportunity given to educate you, if you haven't put yourself in a position of striving, and if all you've left yourself with is that this is my body and I want a check, and you come to work for somebody and you have no idea of what you're supposed to do, and you have no drive and where you're going, you've put yourself in that position.
Once you project this image of challenge, of life as it ought to be fundamentally, does that put pressure upon your own family, the children particularly?
Well, no, because you see, when you talk about education, when I talk about education to my children, I'm talking about education. You can become anything you want to become. But with a liberal education, if you have no idea what you want to become, with a liberal education, what have you done? You've read, you've wanted to read, you've wanted to know. That should be the fun part of life, because then you can talk about things. The unfun part of life is constantly fighting against the odds to get an education. You wind up not knowing anything, and so then you have to gather yourself together and go out and do what everybody else wants you to do.
And there are consequences in the choices.
Absolutely.
That is interesting, that when the news broke about one of your daughters having a difficulty with dependency, apparently you and Camille moved swiftly, not to deny, but to project this term of tough love. I mean, what was the kind of thinking behind the immediacy of it, and not denying it, but a recommendation in terms of your own sense of therapy, tough love? I mean, define tough love.
There is no reason. It's two things clearly. My mother didn't write the book, but my mother always had a philosophy. And she graduated from junior high school and then went 2 years high school and then started scrubbing the steps. And my mother said, with your children, you don't turn your back. You don't turn your back two different ways. Number one, you don't turn your back because you love them and they need you. Number two, if you got one that you don't trust, you don't turn your back. Twice. And that's always stayed with both of us. And so with this particular child, it's her behavior. And I said this, and I mean it, that many times a child will have a certain belief about what life has been promised. And they think that their participation in it is giving life all it should get. But they're wrong. Because I am who I am does not deter Erica from becoming an artist with an education. It doesn't deter my son from saying, I want an education and I can be whatever I want to be. And the other two down the line, we have one who decides that I have to be me. Fine.
Me defined as?
Me, whatever mistake I make, that's me. And just don't go back on it. Don't keep telling me about my mistakes. Well, you have to look at her and you say, okay, now how far have you gone so far? All I know is that as a parent, your children will be your children for the rest of your life.
But how did you handle, I mean, given the tremendous credibility that you and Camille have as family and as professionals, was there a sense of embarrassment? How did you handle that?
No. When you love a kid, I mean, that's my kid. It's not the neighborhood. We don't tarnish because of what people think about us. We tarnish if we behave because of what we think our neighbors are going to think. And when you quote Mrs. Cosby, you say, well, if somebody does something against you, that can't be your friend. So who am I trying to impress? If I love my daughter and I want to see her well, it doesn't make any difference what the neighbors think.
How is she responding to both the love and the toughness of you and Camille's response?
I think she's confused. And from that comes anger. And she's still trying to manipulate. But that's the fun of it, because Camille and I know that we're on course.
So when you went through the drama in one of the Huxtable series about Theo and the joint.
Absolutely.
In part, your response was a real life therapy process.
Sure. But, you know, on a television show, a comedy, 22 minutes, I don't see how you can have a beginning, middle, and end and solve drugs. You just cannot do it.
Therefore, what is the Huxtable's agenda? What is the message that keeps coming through? What are you really trying to say?
To make sure that your children have and know that you love them in spite of themselves. To give them your experience in life, to live as well as you can, being happy with yourself.
Thank you. Bill Cosby shared with us some very private and very special moments and very basic philosophy. Just because you were born in the slum does not mean the slum is born in you. He did not use it as some basis for doing less than his best. What does it matter if the doors of opportunity swing wide open, if you're too drunk to stagger through the door? So Bill is coming straight at us with some very profound messages. That's how it struck me. I want to know how Bill Cosby's message strikes you.
Reverend Jackson, as you know, I think Bill Cosby is very special. And I believe that Bill has a profound understanding of what love is all about and what that means in dealing with our young people and our children. And I think that's part of the problem of today. Young people don't believe that they're loved.
There is a sense in which this question of tough love and discipline goes to the heart of how shall we address young America now, given the what we call children at risk.
The message I got had to do with your opportunities and taking advantage of them, and that given the opportunities you have, you should always do your best to take advantage of them, even depending on how limited they are.
And so there's no basis for concession, for surrender. Mm-hmm. Your hand is up.
My name is Peter Casada. I'm from East Los Angeles. I was brought up in the barrios, and when I was going to junior high school, there was marijuana sold across the table, and when marijuana was something like a terrible crime that it really ought to be. And the one thing that I heard someone here mention about how difficult it is to be a parent and express your tough love to your child requires something very special, and that be that you must be disciplined yourself and be an example to your child, not just tell your child what to do, but show them through your own behavior and through your own example, because that's how they really will believe you.
So Bill Cosby speaks to us. Yes, indeed. We thank Bill Cosby for sharing with us today. Now a break for a commercial. We are a superpower with the most sophisticated arsenal in the history of the whole world. We spend $300 billion a year on military defense. We are at war, but the war is not being fought with some foreign adversary, some foreign foe. Mr. Bush and Mr. Gorbachev are having meetings on the boats in Malta. We're dying every day. It's not that the Russians are coming, but the dope pushers are coming, and the crack pushers are coming, and they're coming with Uzas and AK-47s. They're killing people, they're killing police. And every night we see on TV the police cars and the blue lights flashing. These are the veterans of the war, but the casualties are our children. Just went to a hospital here in Los Angeles just to see and to hear the voices of our children.
The increase of children who are coming into the child welfare system whose mothers have used drugs prenatally is explosive. We have predictions all the way up to 450,000 children a year nationwide.
Most of our mothers really want their babies. That does not, however, mean that they are capable of taking care of their babies.
Now I am expecting a child. I'm 6 months pregnant and did use crack cocaine during the first 5 months. The only reason I stopped was because I'm in jail now because I got caught.
Most of these women are extremely highly motivated for change at the time of delivery.
I was a drug-addicted baby, and I had to work through a lot of anger. I have a learning disability, TMJ problems. I've had major surgery. I have a heart problem. due to her use of drugs and alcohol during the pregnancy. So I see both sides of it, and it's very difficult. We're working on characteristics of the preschool child. I don't think our society can afford to turn its back on these women because we can't afford to keep these children in foster care.
The children who are living with us at this time have either come to us directly from the hospital because their positive toxicology and their withdrawal symptoms were severe, or because mother has gotten up from the birth experience and left, and the baby is truly abandoned at the hospital.
And it's hard for me not to think of these women as human beings who care and are really caught up in a terrible disease. And I believe that addiction is a disease.
As we wrestle with this most difficult and challenging problem, a war on drugs, well, with today 4 experts. First, Dr. Xlina Bean, a doctor at Martin Luther King Jr. Hospital.